introduce our guest speaker for today. The topic we're discussing today is the role of the Nigerian engineer in the energy transition. And I believe that Prof is going to challenge us today for us to champion this, the energy transition, especially in Nigeria. So I'll just read the few introduction and then I'll hand over to Prof for his presentation. So today, our speaker is Professor Babs Oyeneyin. He is a retired professor of petroleum engineering at the Robert Gordon University, Aberdeen in the UK from 1996 to 2019. He is the CEO of a group of technology companies, including High Flow Energy Holdings, a capacity building and integrated energy technology development company. He is the CEO of WTL Energy Limited, a new integrated green energy solutions company, and also the CEO of Petronics Limited, a technology venture capitalist. His MSc and PhD are in petroleum engineering from Heriot-Watt University, Edinburgh. He's got a BEng in mechanical engineering from the University of Benin, with over 40 years of industrial experience. He is the founder and 2002 to 2019 chairman of the Global Joint Industry and Management Network. He is, 2011 and 2012 president of the Mining Institute of Scotland. He's a fellow of the Nigerian Academy of Science, fellow Institute of Material, Mineral and Mining, UK, Enterprise Fellow, Royal Society, Edinburgh, UK. He's a director and Center of Petroleum Information in Nigeria, SPE member, plus other professional body. He's a chartered and current registered engineer with bountiful numbers of technical publication and patent to his credit. Please join me in welcoming our presenter for today, Professor Babs Oyeneyin, for his presentation. Thank you, sir. You can go ahead and share your screen, sir.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you, everybody, for the opportunity for today. And I appreciate everybody attending. And I thank the executive of the Nigerian Society of Engineers Glasgow branch for giving me this opportunity to join the discussion. There's going to be a discussion session, and I don't know whether I should apologize ahead of time, but I recognize that we have a lot of challenges in Nigeria, and as engineers, we should be leading the challenge when it comes to energy, and that is why, in discussing with Chairman Shegun, I felt we need to kick ourselves in the backside and look at what our role should be. We should be leaders. So in looking at this, I don't hold myself or my company is responsible for the views that I express, if you take that forward. But like I said, the biggest challenge for those of us who are even old horns, you heard about NEPA. There's limited access to electricity in the country. It's epileptic, and even from a generation point of view, and transmission and distribution. Those have been the biggest issues so far. But my bigger worry really is that Nigerians are going towards solar, for example, because they want a reliable and sustainable power supply, not because it's been driven by energy transition. And people, up till now, I don't think majority of the people really give a damn or care about it. So, and from a government point of view, there have been inconsistent policies over the year. And in majority of the aspect, you find that you've had the aging Kainji, you have the Ekpi power station. And in majority of other cases too, there have been reliance on coal. And there's a lot of poverty in the country from even power supply point of view. The Chinese have taken advantage of that, and they've they flooded the place with lamps and name it. But people really, I don't think they care about the climate change impact. And that is because there's limited education to that effect. So that is why in thinking about this, I felt I would start with what really we mean by energy transition. And there are really opportunities, but there are also challenges in the Nigerian energy sector. And I want to, be able to showcase majority of instances the role of us as engineers in this regard, and see what the opportunities are, even either for us to invest and contribute. As a technical person, as a researcher, I believe there's scope, especially for those in academia and applied technology industry, to give them some examples of some of the things that I'll call them low-hanging fruits, and I will conclude at the end. And I'm trusting you are hearing me at the end there.
Yes, sir, we can hear you.
So I'll start with the first one. Really, what energy transition is all about. It's about zero carbon footprint and decarbonization, and try to avoid the global warming parasites, methane especially, and CO2 emission. And to try and have, that's why I put it invited commerce. Are they really clean? Clean energy, and to have energy efficiency, and more importantly in Nigeria, energy sustainability. It's not because I'm a petroleum engineer. It is not about replacing oil and gas. For the next million years, oil and gas will continue to be with us, and they are actually at the centerpiece of actually this energy transition. So it's not transition to renewable energy. It's about them complementing each other to take us to the next level and be sustainable and to be environmentally friendly. So quick one, majority of the energy mix come from oil and gas, coal, and again, in many countries now, nuclear, though some people are trying to prevent Iran from getting into that domain. And the so-called renewables, and hydro has been with us in Nigeria. And what you see on the right there, again, is the footprint. Yes, we acknowledge that some of the aspects, especially coal and oil and natural gas, have a higher carbon footprint. But what I always tell people, it's not what you are using, it's how you are using it, and how you can actually, we can manage that. And that's, for us in Nigeria, is an opportunity I think engineers have to lead in that regard. So these are the general trends. This is slightly obsolete now, but I don't think much has actually.
Sorry, Prof. Is your slide moving? Because we're just on one slide.
Oh, mine is moving in front of me here.
Maybe you're not sharing the other screen. What we have here is just the opportunities for engineering.
Oh, okay. I'm sharing. Are you seeing this one now? I think the problem is probably from your end then. Mine is moving here.
Is anybody seeing? Oh, yes. So we're now on the first page now.
Yeah, but I put it on slideshow. Maybe that is why you have low. I think the problem is here. Maybe I'll just stick to the slide themselves. Are you seeing that?
Yes, I'm seeing that now.
So
is everybody seeing the same thing?
I won't put it on slideshow then. I think it's eating into your bandwidth. Because I'm seeing everything perfect here. So should I go ahead?
Please go ahead. I think I'm not sure if I'm the only one experiencing, but please go ahead, sir.
Okay.
Good evening, sir. Good evening, sir.
Yeah.
We are only seeing your PowerPoint page. We are not seeing the slideshow itself.
But it's telling me.
So if you are using two screens, two screens,
I'm using only one screen.
Okay. So, sir, just the way it is now, let's just continue like this. I think since everybody can see this.
But are you seeing the next one?
Yes, we can see the next one, the disclaimer.
Okay. Are you seeing the challenges of the energy sector?
Yes, we can say so.
Oh, okay. I'll stay on the slide rather than putting on slideshow. I think the
Okay,
slideshow
that's fine.
is
That's
your
fine.
challenge. So apologies for that. I thought you were seeing it because everything is moving in front of me here.
No
So,
problems at all.
like I said before, I'll just get to this point that there's limited access to electricity in Nigeria, and it's still so much unreliable. And majority of people really are going to solar because they see it as the only opportunity for them to get 24/7 power supply. In my estate, that's what many people try to do in Nigeria. They just install solar, so they know they are guaranteed. If they rely on NEPA, they will be there forever. So that's a critical challenge. And so the onus is on us as engineers to be able to at least educate our people. I don't think they really give a damn about energy transition. They just want reliable energy supply, whether they are as individuals or industry. So, and that is what has driven, and that is, I believe you have seen that slide, that my agenda will cover what is energy transition, what are the challenges in the energy sector in Nigeria, and what are the opportunities, and what's the role for Nigerian engineers, and what are those areas we should actually be focusing on, and what are the opportunities that for us as NSC members and as engineers and scientists that we should be helping to tackle. And like I said, I'll give example of what I call low-hanging energy projects that we should focus on. And this is, I'm hoping this will be the first of a series of discussions. So so I started with actually talking about what is energy transition. It's actually about zero carbon footprint. It's about decarbonization. It's about having tackling those parasites that create global warming, the methane and the CO2 emissions. And it's about dealing with clean energy, and that again that give us zero carbon footprint. It's about energy efficiency. And more importantly, in Nigeria, it's about energy sustainability. As many people try to make us believe, it's not about replacing oil and gas or fossil fuel. And it's not about moving from fossil fuel to renewable. They have to complement each other. With the growth in population globally, that's what is going to happen. In fact, the developing nations have very low carbon footprints, and they will tap into fossil fuel in order for them to be economically developed, especially countries like Nigeria. And that's why I went into talking about the energy mix and the carbon footprint. And I'm summarizing that from the fact that yes, oil, gas, coal, uh, nuclear, hydro, and now the so-called renewables are into all of this. And again, oil and gas, coal have carbon footprints, and many of the others are still in that domain. And what do we do to be able to reduce those carbon footprints? In Nigeria right now, the trend actually is in terms of energy access and consumption within the country. So there is the aspect of utilizing electricity, and a lot of people still utilize kerosene. LPG is becoming very popular, especially in many modern uh, establishments and estates in the country, and some cars and some buses are going in that trend. Some of you must have heard that, in fact, Dangote is launching, I think, this August, about 4,000 vehicles that will rely on compressed natural gas to actually be able to transport its fuel to the different locations within Nigeria. And on the right, if you see the share, it's still a lot towards gas, it's still a lot towards oil, and it's still a lot towards coal. The others are growing. The nuclear itself is, other than the research institute based in Abuja, um, we don't see a huge opportunity there as far as we are concerned. And somebody should please let me know if you're not seeing the slide, and just give a shout so that I can be able to, because I'm seeing everything from my end here.
No problem. We're seeing the slide, sir.
Okay. So in fact, the slide I put here is almost obsolete. I was thinking that in terms of gap in supply and demand, the demand is so high now and is going to continue to grow. In fact, by 2030, that I forecasted before some years ago, there will be a shortfall of about 400 million barrels globally. And the International Energy Agency is actually forecasting much more than that. So even though we are going into renewable and the others, the demand on oil and gas and fossil fuel is going to continue to increase. And it's how we manage that, in my opinion, that will help us with the energy transition. Because right now, in fact, the oil industry, especially, it's making more dollars because it's only 10% of their product that go into energy consumption. The rest are the things that we need for modern life. So what are these energy transitions technologies? Some people try to group them together, but personally, I've tried to separate them into nuggets. What I define as the renewables are the solar, wind, fuel cells, and hydro. The fuel cell is not too popular in Nigeria yet. Some housing estates are having them. The wind, again, I will mention some of the areas. There are some in the northern part of Nigeria, and there is potential in the what I call the Lobo states in Nigeria. Within the industry, people tend to associate people with carbon capture, utilization, and supply to oil and gas industry. But really, when there's carbon capture in the atmosphere, even having agriculture where if you remember your photosynthesis, where the plants actually accumulate the carbon dioxide, is one of the technologies. Within the oil industry, we tend to store them in impermeable or covered by impermeable structures, and we identify the permeable areas we can squeeze them. In the US, companies like Marathon and ExxonMobil try to capture the atmospheric carbon dioxide. In places like Spain, they actually capture the carbon dioxide and turn them into synthetic oil and gas. But growing in Nigeria is the waste to energy and the biomass and synthetic gas generations in different parts of the country, but they don't have a good market. And there's the power generation also from gas. A green power station is one of those. And with all this, I call my son, who is an architect, call them the buildings we have in Nigeria are monsters. We have houses, concrete, and there's split unit in every room. I'm a guilty one. In fact, in my house in Lagos, I think I have about 10 split units. I mean, to me, that's part of the challenge we have. But can we have an open plan house, what I'll call smart building, and in which you can only use power in the section that you are in? And there's the aspect of synthetic fuels that, again, with all this tokumbo we import into the country. You remember people were crying about the price of diesel oil, and they still use the orthodox diesel. So that is still there. And there's opportunity for gas to liquid that, again, is easy to transport into the rural areas. And Ikogosi is one of the areas I see in terms of geothermal that people can actually be able to tap into. And again, in other areas, either for them to have hot water bath. Like the nuclear energy is still a challenge and it's still a problem. And having said that, but the bottom line for us, especially even in the oil and gas industry, is to try and have improved oil recovery using what are called net zero technologies. But critical to our business in Nigeria, if you ask anybody, nobody even has any data on that. So the digital aspect of support and being able to make real-time prediction, introducing artificial intelligence into our program of work. Again, I think the IT people need to be able to lead in this, and also with the engineers. So I've talked about these areas of the energy access. I don't need to repeat that. So I'm going to focus more on this. And there are many other opportunities, but the low-hanging fruit for me is the renewable energy sources, the solar, which is becoming popular in Nigeria. But there's a challenge. I can see there are some people in the waiting room, so whoever is the host can try to get them in. So you see the solar is very popular. The wind, again, wind power, there are locations within Nigeria. Yes, please. Yeah, there are people in the waiting room for you, I think, for you to accept, if you are hearing me.
Yes, sir, we're bringing them in. I think, yeah, we're bringing them in.
Okay. So the other opportunities that we see, but we are not the one actually driving them, and that's my frustration. We are not the one driving them. We see a lot of boisterous, young, energetic Nigerians actually dominating these sectors. Even some slow as just vocational trained people, but not the engineers. We are not seeing areas where many of our engineers are not actually dominating. So we need to be able to take advantage of many of this. Inefficient management is part of what we have in Nigeria. I recall during the was it about a year ago when the Glasgow branch has this annual conference, and I think one of the leaders of Nigerian power system that even their SCADA system, they can't even interpret where there is failure. They have to be searching blindly as to where there are failures and and there'll be many blackouts all this while. So part of the opportunity is for us to be able to build sustainable infrastructures. And again, either the universities or research institutes, because there are a number of research establishments in Nigeria, to now actually have dedicated high impact and focused research and development project to help the country. And the opportunities are there in the expansion. There's a lot of expansion, especially in Lagos right now. You'll find that many of those who are there, they call themselves solar engineers. Many are just primary school holders, artisans who have decided to go into this business and gone to China to get some rudimentary training. And they are installing these solar unit inverters and batteries that are flooding the country from China. So we have a responsibility to be able to at least take ownership of this and direct the key operations. Forgive the congestion of what we have on the right. My emphasis is actually to focus on the solar panel, having the solar panel or solar farm, as we like to call it. But there are a variety of others that have always been in place in Nigeria. Even before I was born, I think the kanji has been there. Initially, some of us felt that the wind farm will not be there. But can we change from this paddle aspect to what I call rotating turbine units? I'm aware there's actually a hydrogen plant in one of the industrial parks in Ondo State. Do they have a proper market? There are arguments now as to whether hydrogen is good or bad or ugly for us. But there's the bigger aspect in which we are not even taking advantage of with the land mass that we have. Agriculture is a big aspect of actually being able to capture that CO2. And I call it a technology, an energy transition technology, because it's about decarbonization. So for me, it's an energy transition technology. People going into farming, and I salute those of you who actually do that. So if you look at the trend of energy transition technology consumption and installation in Nigeria from I've gone as far as 2015, and looking at the even potential going forward, is the industries that hopefully are trying to lead in that respect. I've had the privilege of having interaction with some of them, because again, Waste to Energy Limited is actually trying to have a GTL plant in Nigeria, and the raw material from the waste. We are talking to some of the industrial setups. Many of them are frustrated with actually using their diesel generators. They want to be able to use part of their waste to generate power, but it's a bit inefficient actually doing that. So I'm hoping that at least from our own perspective as engineers, we can support them and encourage them. And again, for those of us who get into government, can actually be able to create a consistent policy going forward. I was listening to, was it Channel 4 this morning that Tinubu flood, I think, had about, is it 4,000 or 40,000 tractors for agriculture. And I think that is one of the trends. But is it part of the strategy for energy transition? I'm not too sure whether it is just politics or is it part of, I don't believe it's part of the energy transition. So we have opportunities to be able to encourage that. So how do we see our role? For me, I think we have to take ownership of the design and the development of the energy transition system that are fit for purpose, not just copy and paste from China or wherever. I think we need to take ownership of that in terms of even just providing the relevant guidelines, the environmental impact aspect of it. That one is actually a riot act. So maintaining the efficient energy solutions, what I'm calling a fit for purpose for Nigeria. I think it's our responsibility, whether on the platform of Nigerian Society of Engineers or in the individual specialty groups that are available within the country. We have a responsibility to develop the sustainable infrastructure. And we have to promote the innovation that are fit for Nigeria, not copy and paste from UK, China, or whatever. And that, even if we are stealing technology, that transfer, and why not? That transfer has to be in real time, that is fit for purpose for us as Nigerians. So should it be the power grid of the future that we should be using? This integrated system using solar, using waste, using hydro, and all. But for us, the biggest challenge and what I took from Glasgow is even the storage aspect, even within our homes. As I'm speaking with you now, my solar system is on. Nobody is living in the house. So, and when that battery actually hits 100%, it stays there. So can we harness even what we are getting from the solar, and maybe I actually transmit into the national grid, and not necessarily from the money aspect, so that again other people can benefit instead of just wasting it. And I know there are loads of other idle facilities like that within the country that they just waste away. And one of the questions that people have asked, and young people, especially in the oil and gas industry, they are worried that, oh, the energy transition, their job is threatened. Is there a need for transition? And my own answer is no. Yes, we need the skills transformation. The fundamental physics, the science aspect, the technology aspect, the engineering aspect, the mathematics are still the same. So if you are fully trained in having the strong fundamentals, gas is gas. So if I know about perfect gas law, I know about Charles law, I know about Boyle's law, or name it. Yes, I might upgrade it and adapt it. Does that make a difference whether it is CO2 or whether it is hydrogen, or whether even if I'm looking at power system? So my belief is that yes, we need people to reorientate themselves if they are going into, for example, renewable support or other energy transition systems. But we still have a lot of scope for, it's not enough to just have a degree. There must be competency development. There must be capacity building to be able to support the energy transition technologies. And I seriously, passionately believe that the Nigerian Society of Engineers must lead in all these critical areas. So the quickies for me, and for those of you listening there, And those of you who are abroad, there's a massive scope and for opportunities in terms of market. In fact, it's mind-boggling. Some of the market intelligence survey we did is unbelievable. It's mostly in the urban areas. The rural areas are still very green, very untouched. So we need to be able to tap into all of those. And I see them as low-hanging fruits. There's huge challenge, even globally, in Nigeria, what I call a global challenge in Nigeria, in all the states, in terms of energy storage. Having smart grid systems is still a challenge. Many housing estates are trying to build their own power units and still stealing from the national grid. And we need to, maybe the architects among the civil engineers among us again need to encourage these open plan houses in the country to be able to minimize the scale. I recall the clay bricks can be at night. If you use clay bricks, it can be very, very cold at night. And I recall when we were young, and some of you probably relate to this. You see a situation where you have this, we call it amu, but it's clay pot, where my grandmother, even the water is almost 0 degrees. When you want cold water, you go in there. Can we go back to those fundamental technologies? And I still believe there's opportunity for that. And there are opportunity for briquettes, again, from ash. So even those who are having waste and have the ash, they can turn to briquettes to do that. So I can go on and on. There are loads of these, and you will have the opportunity to be able to relate to them when the slides are showed. And hydrogen is still a big case. Whether we will be able to like that or we deny that. Some people say, oh, green hydrogen is a challenge, but it's what you can readily actually produce from water, whether it's from seawater. Those of you who have passed through the coastal road in Lagos, which actually passes through the back of my estate, it's such a wonderful thing. Can we take advantage of the Atlantic combined with the key system? So you'll get the hydrolysis of the water to be able to form hydrogen, to get the green hydrogen. There are many fantastic chemical engineers among us. And there are again, blue and all of the other hydrogens that can have good opportunities in the country. And we have the technology to actually be able to support those. Again, storage is a challenge. Getting the right market is a challenge. Having the funding to do that is a challenge. So these are the challenges, but and some people will say that is, but like my mentor, Engineer Jama, who used to be the president of Nigerian Society, he doesn't see things as challenges. He sees them as opportunities, and he has infected me with that word of opportunity. I think there's infrastructure deficiency in Nigeria, and I see that as opportunity for our engineers. In fact, I think Engineer Jama is into power. I don't know whether Dr. Salim is in this meeting. I think he used to be one of his engineers, and he tries as much as possible. And there are loads of us who are into this. But again, the deficiency is still very high for not just even transmission. Again, the generation, there's still a problem. The transmission is also still a problem. And down the line, even many of the transformers, even when the customers actually have their transformer, there are key problems still riding around in Nigeria. Many of the infrastructures are still outdated. They are really aging. Many of them are older than myself. So, and part of the opportunity is being able to have the funding and the investment in the right places, not consuming them as our politicians are doing. So there is the high capital cost because many of these are again aging. But knowing Nigeria for what it is, many investors see us as a risk. Can we change that? Let's lead in terms of actually we doing it. So there has to be public private partnership that will have to be involved in all of this. Many of us keep our money, we keep our naira, we invest them in high yielding investments. Can we divert some of this into this? Yes, they have risk, but the opportunities are there for the market. And from a government point of view, my frustration is that even trying to get information, you get different information on this. The policies and regulatory framework need complete overhaul. Many of them are inconsistent. Some of the policies are actually fluctuating depending on what regime you are looking at. And people tend to, in fact, there's nobody actually looking at the environmental impact of all these solar panel installations and so on and so forth that you're having in Nigeria. Nobody is looking at that. That, to me, is an opportunity for the environmental guys within our society to try and deal with. And then there's the opportunity for, again, what I meant by the private excess energy feed into the national grid. Can we influence that? In order, if I have surplus energy that is wasting away in my home in Lagos now, I have the opportunity to, again, the excess to be able to put it into the national grid. And like I said, there is a strategic environmental impact assessment that need to be carried out in our country right now. Nobody, even the so-called ministries of environment, they are not even looking at those areas. They are looking at dumping, looking at waste, and so on. But more importantly, we need the people. Any technology at all, we need people. Nigerians are very smart guys. So the capacity building rests on us. I don't mean getting degrees, having the skilled manpower to be able to address the various challenges that, again, is coming up with respect to energy transition. Nigeria is already highly successful in terms of a lot of skills in the oil and gas industry. Some of those skills can be, again, transformed, not transition, transformed to be able to support the energy transition technologies. And there has to be public awareness. Like I said in the beginning, people are just using solar because it's the most reliable they can lay their hands on. So they need to also be educated. So seminars like these, the Nigerian Society of Engineers has to be able to create that awareness, whether on telly or whatever, or at the conferences that they influence. When you talk to some people, they claim that there are really no energy transition projects in Nigeria. In my digging and the background research into this, I was amazed, really, because I've been out of the country for a long time. Yes, from oil and gas, I know that we are fast growing, but I was amazed by the loads of information I was able to stumble on. So are we making significant strides? It depends on your school of thought, but I think we've started on a very good note. From a solar energy point of view, Nigeria actually already has planned to generate over 430 gigawatts of solar energy. I was amazed by that. In fact, they have about 8 megawatts of solar park in the Federal University of Agriculture in Makurdi. And they have a 3.5 megawatts of hybrid solar park in Bayero University. And there have been this billion-dollar solar power project that's actually been planned for a number of places in the country. And there's a hydro system. There's a wind farm actually in Katsina State that is meant to be generating about 10 megawatts. And of course, you know that our Kainji is limping on, is still there. And there is the Egbe power station. So you see that there are still very huge opportunities in terms of wind energy. The Kanji, like I said, is there. There are other dams, especially in the north, that are equally there. The Egbe power station is still there, though limping on using natural gas. But there's vandalization all of the time for people who really just want to make ends meet. And there are CNG powered vehicles. Like I said, Dangote is actually it's already announced that by August, it'll be flooding the market with almost 4,000 CNG. Nuclear, I have my personal concern. I think the security man at the gate might walk away with the spent rod in future, thinking he's using it as walking stick. That bothers me, and that's where the education is important. But I'm pleased that there are waste to energy plants in Nigeria now. One of the ones similar to the one we are trying to have is the one in Ota. Again, they generate synthetic gas, and again they put them in LPG bottles and sell. And I think that's also a very good step forward. So we have them. So the question is, what's the need for us going forward? I think we need that energy security. We need the energy transition capacity to be able to support the expansion in the market. I believe we need a dedicated energy transition center supported and led by the Nigerian Society of Engineers to do that. And the fundamental principle will be like what RJU did with Shell to now create the Shell Intensive Training Program. We need to have intensive training programs at all levels to be able to do this, and to include entrepreneurship to be able to achieve that. And again, as you'll see later, I think that there's a need to be able to have what I call feeder establishments. So where we train people dedicated to this, they are like in the polytechnics and places like the PTI, rather than them just trying to be universities. I think they have a very, very strong fundamental role to play in being able to deploy energy transition technologies. So in winding down to that point, I think that investment is big. I'm happy the government is set up this energy bank. We need to look at how that can be achieved in the longer term. I think the government framework is there now. The opportunity is for us to take ownership of that and see how we can actually be able to have access to the investment. And there are already tax incentives for carbon credit for many companies, not just in the oil and gas industry, but other industries. And there are, again, a lot of people with deep pockets. I call them business angels that are funding even some of these waste to energy plants in Nigeria. They are consortium, and some of them go through banks. Let's take advantage of that. And the question is there a need for a new engineering curriculum development? I believe so. I think in talking to, in presenting at the Society of Petroleum Engineers about 2 years ago, I think we need to revisit the program. The core courses will still be there, but digitization and having, again, knowledge of energy efficiency and the role, for example, of oil and gas in that is very important. And we need to be able to spread that to all of the others. And there has to be collaboration. Many of our people just want to be, oh, I'm chairman, I'm this or that. I think there needs to be collaboration domestically to form JV partnerships. I've skipped the last one on the structure for petroleum engineering. This is one of the ones through the SPE that I indicated. The core courses are still there, but there's scope for, again, industrial training that many of us went through. In my time, you spent 6 months in the university and 6 months in the industry, in collaboration with the industry. It was a government policy through the Industrial Training Fund. I recall we used to get £25 a month to be able to sustain ourselves. That seems to have disappeared. I think NSC needs to bring all of those back, to influence the policy to achieve that. That's how many of us got into where we are. Not just having the fundamental theory, having the practical, relevant experience to do that. That used to happen in Nigeria. For those of you who might be thinking I'm talking about UK, no. This way, myself, that's what we were in industry. If you don't, you go with a failure, you must pass both. So not just the examinations. So when we come to the energy transition issues, we need to bring those back. And that's why I'm ending with this. it has to be a triplex concept. So the government organizations like that are there, the Nigerian Content Directorate, Development and Management Board, PTDF, and a host of the others, they need to provide some element of leadership there. The Energy Bank is already created. So again, whether the IOCs and where they are going, many of Nigerian IOCs now, Renaissance, Seplat, and the rest, they are becoming IOCs. And the other domestic companies again need to get involved. Some of them have deep pockets. So that is where some of these industrial attachments have to be supported. And we need to have energy transition center, again spearheaded by Nigerian Society of Engineers. So that does not become the center where people can acquire knowledge, people can be educated, and it could again have access to investment for their spin-out companies, and again to be able to create the framework for the technologies we want to develop that again are dedicated to our country. So before I conclude, I felt I'll throw many of these up. We have a lot of lakes and seas. Many of the solar panels that we have really get very hot sometimes and they break down. Excuse me. There are existing technologies now, what we call floating solar panels. They can float on lakes. They can float on even like what we have in the coastal regions or the coastal road like in Lagos. They can float there. And instead of all this, because I hate them myself, this wind farm with paddles, there are what I call vertical wind turbines. People use them in many homes in Europe. And why not in Nigeria, especially in areas where there are wind? There's the hydrogen, green hydrogen opportunity also in Nigeria, which is easy to be able to fund and easy to be able to develop. Water is the major raw material for that. The hydrolysis is the issue. So again, there are special cells now. The Chinese are flooding Nigeria with them already. I call them milli solar cells that again can be used for different kits in different industries. And there are solid state batteries that are already being used. I have one in my house. So not all those battery packs. Some of these are lithium batteries. Some of them are what we call flow batteries that are easy to develop or again customized for Nigeria. Some of them burn out within our country because they are brought from China. They can possibly, in temperate regions, they can be okay, but they get so hot in places. How can we adapt them for our own environment? And there's the opportunity for what I call vertical farming. We have these large farms that we can use, but some of them, again, we can go into vertical farming and be able to use some of the rest to either for solar panel. So we have a hybrid system, like what I call the special power pack system that I showed much earlier. And CCUS, why not? Again, we can deploy young, exciting engineers and scientists in Nigeria to start looking at these that come into our domain. I was excited to see recently, I think it's about a month ago, and again, Ghana government showcasing these young girls who have developed biodegradable plastics. Let's go for them. Let's support them. Let's create this opportunity for our country. And those are just pictures of some of these systems that can be very useful to us. The mini solar cells now are literally everywhere. And let's take advantage of this in itself. So I'm rounding up with this. Whether we like it or not, whether people know it or they want to be connected or not, the train has started moving all over the world. And even in Nigeria, the government has its own plan for 250, though they keep revising it to 260. But the framework is there. We as engineers, we must lead in achieving that. It's inevitable. Those who are panicking within the oil and gas industry, I want to challenge you, it's an opportunity. You don't necessarily have to be an employee all your life. You have to be able to become an employer, use the expertise and knowledge and what the framework is already provided for us. But again, like government, I think Nigerian Society of Engineers, I believe, will have to lead in this. So the commitment to reducing greenhouse emission is an opportunity that must be championed by our society. The net zero technology itself must focus on the human capacity development. That is a responsibility, as far as I'm concerned, for our society to lead. We can't be waiting for government to lead in everything. We have the multidisciplinary expertise and the leadership to do that. I recall during Engineer Ujaman's time, we were thinking about this. Many of us were young engineers in those days, even in the Benin branch. And that is what has actually transformed some of the researches some of us have actually done. So let's facilitate this public-private partnership with government and agencies and individuals, rather than all this money being stored in London or in soccerways in Nigeria. Let's try to create the framework to achieve this. And we need the data. We don't have any. We are relying on what IEA or others actually tell us. Let's create our own reliable database to see what, and that will help us to be able to identify what our needs are. But more importantly, the value addition must again be on the platform of us as NSC helping to create the center that will help us to create the required business model, and most importantly, for the domestic operator. Because right now, everybody is just doing his own thing. Even in the little estates, the developers and the owners of the houses are just fighting each other. Some want to have solar, then the central power system again goes down because nobody is patronizing it. Who is driving the policies? Who is actually leading in this area? I think this is an opportunity for us as Nigerian Society of Engineers to actually provide the leadership that is needed. Energy transition is inevitable. We can continue to dodge it. So I'm going to end at this point and give room for either you kick my backside or challenge what I've said, and also possibly to ask questions. Thank you so much. I appreciate. Thank you to the NSC Glasgow branch for giving me the opportunity to share my thoughts with you. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you so much, Prof, for this insightful presentation. You had warned me before that you were going to really call out NSC so that we can lead this charge in the energy transition in Nigeria. So thank you so much for doing that. I will hand over to my colleague, Engineer Paul, who is the technical secretary, to lead the Q&A session. I think we have Prof will be catching up a train very soon, so we'll have like 10, maximum 15 minutes for Q&A. But I would like to start by asking 2 questions, Prof, and then Engineer Paul will take it up from there. I think the idea about feeding excess energy to the national grid, I think is a very fantastic idea, because if you look at the way individuals and corporations generate energy in Nigeria, you understand that there's quite a lot of waste and excess energy that could have been fed back to the national grid. How can that really be done? Because, for example, in Scotland here, so does it have to be an infrastructure implementation to enable that, or is it a policy? For example, I know in Scotland, there's what we call the G99, which is like the energy network standards and requirements for connecting, generating equipment to the national grid. It is something like we need that. So that's my first question. And the second question is, I really want you to make a strong argument that energy transition is not really about moving from oil and gas to renewables.
Yeah.
The reason is because I remember sometimes back in Scotland, there was a time it was celebrated that the whole energy consumption in Scotland came from renewable energy. And recently, our branch embarked on a technical visit to a power plant in England. And one of the things that was discussed is, even though they have a very large capacity of generating from gas turbine, they only supply to the grid when the renewables are not able to meet the demand.
Yeah.
So if these kind of implementations are going on and the renewables keep ramping up, are we not going to get to a stage where, in quotes, we may have moved from oil and gas for generating power to renewables? So those are just two questions, sir.
Okay. Can I answer that quickly?
Go ahead, sir.
Everything you are wearing right now, other than your hair and your body, it's from petrochemical. Everything completely down to your pants. Everything from petrochemical. So every energy transition system, some of the ones in which I showed the pictures, are coming from petrochemicals, especially from gas. And they will continue to be. We've been utilizing gas. The Egyptians, 3,500 years before Christ, been utilizing gas, using bamboo. Next time some of you go to Cairo, go to the museum, you still see them there. So at the end of the day, for every dollar spent on renewables, the oil industry will continue to make extra. And like I said, my forecast, which is actually obsolete, by 2030 to 2035, will be short by 400 million barrels in terms of the gap between the demand and the supply. Because there's economic development, there's a growth, even in terms of the renewable, again, being able to fulfill the energy aspect. The oil industry will continue to grow. But having said that, and that is why it's at the centerpiece, we need investment to be able to achieve that. Part of what I would like to see, and the oil industry globally, they are making crazy money. Even the little ones in Nigeria are making crazy money. And I'm equally guilty in that. So again, it's being able to use part of those funds, and they have to be attractive. You can't cajole people. You have to be attractive to see them as new opportunities to achieve that. In terms of creating the framework for national grid, I'm a petroleum engineer and a mechanical engineer, but why not? We can use the template of the UK. Right now, when people have, and in the US, it's been there for quite some time. When you have excess, you pump it as long as the market price is right. People pump into the national grid, and they've created the scope for storage. Storage is a big part of that. But these technologies are already there. We can steal it. We don't even need to have agreement with people. That's how Japan succeeded. That's how I can tell you categorically. That's how China stole technology, and they developed to fit their own scenario, and even for export. Why can't we do that? And I support that adequately. We don't need to go back to fundamentals. Let's steal the technology. I don't know if those answer your question.
Yeah, thank you so much, Prof. Engineer Paul.
Thank you very much, Chairman, for the opportunity. And thank you very much, Prof, for this wonderful presentation. It was indeed a wonderful delivery. You made it so simple. And for those of us who have been listening from the beginning to this time, we have actually grabbed a lot of information out of this. And we must appreciate you for this. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yes, sir. This is an opportunity for us to bring in some questions. Do we have people within the group who have questions to ask? Let's see your hands up. We will take a few of these questions and probably be able to send them through to Prof for answers that we will post on our group here as well. So we'll take a few of them, and the ones we are not able to take today, we will send them to Prof for some feedback.
I think there's one on the comment section. So, yeah. Maybe
okay, I did. Okay, let me.
Or do you want me to read it out?
Okay, I've seen it now.
Okay,
And the first question I've seen here is that, please, what's your thought on the argument that gas is the transition fuel, given that it's a fossil fuel with low carbon footprint.
Okay. Do I maybe take all the questions? I can answer them one by one.
Okay.
Would that help?
Yeah, maybe
So
you can take all the questions.
yeah,
Yeah.
I've noted the gas down, but
Okay.
I'm going to challenge, I think it's Sally actually. I'm going to challenge Sally on this, but wait for my answer. But it's a very great question. Yeah.
Yeah. So the second question I see here is a wonderful delivery, Prof. And okay, just appreciation.
Yeah, that's Engineer Ujaman's son. He's actually leading the company in Abuja now in terms of power supply. Yeah.
I think I have somebody's hands up, Dr. Anthony.
Okay.
Yes, my hands are up. A wonderful presentation again, Prof. Thank you very much again for honoring my dad. You called him your mentor, and interestingly, the cycle of life has come around. You have mentored me for many years yourself, so I'm really pleased and grateful to be here. Thank you very much, sir, for that presentation. I'll try and keep my question very brief. It's really on policy advocacy, really. And I was wondering, because you mentioned about policy, regulatory frameworks. You touched on it quite briefly, but I've always had this thought about, what kind of concrete policy, concrete policy framework should, our Nigerian engineering bodies, I think in this case, of course, Nigerian Society of Engineers, be looking to advocate for, such that, Nigeria as a country itself can leverage on its gas reserves as a transition fuel, if you like, while at the same time, scaling renewables without, of course, locking in our carbon dependencies. So I was wondering what your thoughts are on that, Sam. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah. Any other questions?
I think that two may just be enough for now because we're
Okay.
5 minutes.
Let me because they are both on gas. For those of us who are mechanical engineers, I'll give you one example as an opportunity. We have what we call flare stack in our oil and gas industry, the associated gas, even though there's a law now, again, you can pay like $2 million as fine at UPLC. Part of the challenge, if you look at our flare stack, before it used to be 90% methane CO2 emission because of the nozzle design. This nozzle design that we use now, this nozzle
just
design,
to go upstairs to go.
Oh, Dr. Solomon. Okay, this nozzle design that we're talking about now, we copied from the Egyptians that who developed them more than 3,000 years ago. They used to use it to clean their backside in their in their public toilets. Depending on the velocity and again a number of other factors, when it burns, it can generate zero because of 100% combustion can actually generate minimum very low carbon. There could be ash, and the ash themselves can be translated into other things. So gas is very useful within that concept, and that is why in Nigeria right now and all over the world, and not just even in the temperate country, here in the UK, initially there was a ban on gas. You probably heard the fact that people thought they were doing the Russians causing problem for the Russians. They banned them from actually supplying cheap gas to Europe. It's a dilemma for us now. And again, you see it in the UK. Many of our supply to our LNG supply trains, many of them are stored here. In fact, there's a pipeline again from Nigeria all the way to Europe, almost $1 trillion that are actually being utilized. So gas is important in that. And for me, when we talk about it, it's not the stuff that you are using, it's how we are using them. And you heard me when I said we don't have the data repository, even for the solar. They have carbon footprint. Their manufacturers are creating carbon footprint. In terms of even disposal, there are there are so many panels in Lagos now. Many cannot be recycled. Many people don't even know even the composition of the ones they are bringing from China, but there are different versions coming into play. I can go on and on, but I can tell you that the fossil fuel in themselves, they are efficient. It is how you utilize them that come into being. And that's what I made the call. For example, even the coal, when the Ukraine war started, Boris Johnson had to open up the coal mines in the UK for us to meet the energy requirement. If you look at how much we are paying in terms of energy per kilowatt hour right now, it's very expensive because we don't have access to the gas, the cheap gas from China. But we have access to the cheap gas in Nigeria. That's where the gas plant is very useful. We are the seventh or eighth right now, largest country with gas reserves in the world. We have not even touched them at all. We've been utilizing the associated gas that come from undersaturated oil system that come into place. So the government has put the plan in place. It is for us to now grab that opportunity and start building process facilities and championing the process. That's why I said we need to have an energy transition center championed by NSC especially, so that political guys who just hijack them and just be having opening ceremonies. So where we can actually monitor even the footprints, monitor the advantages, and so on and so forth. But having said that, can the lady? Okay, having said that, Tony was making the statement in terms of the policy. If you look at the different policies that are coming into power, even just power generation, we've had different agreements with different suppliers. I think one of them now is this German company that is trying to build a transmission and distribution system for us. I don't know how long they've started. So the process has been epileptic. Yes, the government is frustrated. Yes, the same government people that have actually been causing the problem. Can the people actually take ownership? Even when you generate the power now, even transmission is a problem. I gave the example of the waste to energy. Their biggest challenge is finding the market for the gas they generate. They can't even, they have no links with the so-called power companies that are giving the contract to distribute power. Those people are just chopping our money. That's why you pay money in advance, even there are no bills to be paid, and people are frustrated. So who is able to harness the generation, transmission, and distribution? Who is supposed to do that? I don't think the government has the capability to do that. We've seen it from NEPA days to now. The so-called EKDC, I think like some of those ones in Lagos, they are just political appointments. They will just take money and they rely on subsidy from government to do that. I think while I was in Lagos, I think the Minister for Power and Energy said, "Oh, we'll pay real value for the power." But the question is, when you increase the bill, what's the money going to be used for? It's like having a toll gate. What's that money being used for? Is it to construct a new road or to maintain an existing road? What is it? That is why we have the inconsistent policies. But if you look at this country, I have the privilege of actually belonging to the energy transition group in the UK. We are formulating policies to guide government in terms, we are formulating guidelines and policies to inform what it's actually finally going to be adopted by government and also approved by parliament. So they are relying on expertise of people to do that. You have experts in the House of Lords to actually be able to help to ensure that there's a smooth transition to that. Do we have people in Senate or House of Assembly or whatever, even in the local government area, who are engineers, who are actually influencing some of this. Many get into there, they just dance to party drums. So how can we get ourselves back? I recall, I can't remember his name now. I think it's actually gone. It was during Engineer Ujaman's time, and I called them the Amadou Bello gang during the military regime, and they got into government. It is during that time we then engineers started having influence in Nigeria on government policies before they were able to get into the Federal Executive Council. I've forgotten the guy's name, but again, working with Engineer German, then the NSC spearheaded and supported their being in place. They were commissioners for works, and they were also ministers who were in the Federal Executive Council. We need to go back to that policy. And we still have sorry, sir, in case you are listening, but Tony is listening. If we still have the old Methuselahs who were championing that in those days, right from the Benin branch to the national level. We have to sit at the table to influence the policies. We sit in the background. Yeah, we still sit in the background in the UK here, but they listen to us. They call on us to be able to at least influence and guide them on what policies should be adopted. So we need to sit at the table in Nigeria to ensure that our voices are heard, and we have to demonstrate that with our own capacity building, not just going there as politicians. I've seen some of our ministers; they've been very disappointed. Once they get there, they actually throw away the ladder. They don't even listen to anybody. So we need to go back to that. And I don't apologize for criticizing them because I know many of them. And we still have those who have had that influence. We need to go back to that template. I hope that answers your question, Tony, because that's my biggest frustration. We are not sitting at the table. We are not at all. And we just talk in the press. We on a podcast. No, this is the area for us to be able to take that decision. That is what is happening in other nations. So the politicians, we only listen to what they hear, not just in terms of money. And that has happened during our military regime. NSC led engineers being in government.
Thank you very much, sir. Answers the question. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Do we have an opportunity to take one more?
I'm just conscious of your time, Prof.
Yeah, one more will be fine. And any other question afterwards, I can answer through the NSC, but I still have time for one.
Okay, sir. We have this question here by Uchenna that says, with the ban on the manufacture and sale of solely petroleum-powered transition brought forward to 2030 in the UK, what impact will this have in the future of energy transition in Nigeria?
I can answer that for you categorically. I think the UK government is just dreaming. They are just playing with politics. We'll be lucky if we get anywhere by 2050. I just given you an example, and we're having a conference in November. One, they will never achieve that, even in 2050. And the Labour Party is trying to review that and possibly move it to 2060. We still believe that target of 2050 is fine, but there has to be investment into the transition. Just moving the goalposts to other countries doesn't solve the problem. In fact, we had a meeting the day before yesterday. I'm being given the opportunity to be able to challenge some of the policies. As I told you, you see, this atmosphere is not demarcated. God doesn't create a partition between UK or Europe, Africa. When that CO2 is blowing everywhere. So if you say you don't want to be, you are shutting down the North Sea, but then you are investing in a pipeline from Nigeria all the way to the UK. $1 trillion. So when that gas is coming from Nigeria, is it only Nigerians that will suffer the gas being produced and again some of the flaring? No, that global warming will blow everywhere. It may take time. So that's my view. And 2030 is untenable. I think they are just playing games. They're still relying heavily on gas, but imported from other countries where they see as cheaper source of gas. Many of the companies in the UK are down. Some of you probably heard that Shell, even though Shell is denying it, but I can tell you it is true, because the value of BP has dropped to 1/10 of that of Shell. Shell has already categorically stated that they are going back to oil and gas to be able to fund their projects. BP went full hog, targeting 2030, and they are almost bankrupt as I'm talking to you now. And that's why they become candidate for buyout by Shell and many other companies that are targeting them. So all those political statements, we don't listen to. Those who have gone into it have actually reversed their trend. I don't like Donald Trump, but like he said, it's drill, 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 drill. That's where the funds are. So 2030, forget about it. It will not happen. Even 2050, I'll put my bet on it. It will not happen. Yes, we are working hard to enhance, because people are now aware, and then they are making the cost of, again, power consumption to be very expensive, believing that in the process, again, there will be safety, there will be efficiency. But energy security in the UK right now is the biggest challenge. As I'm speaking with you, there's still oil and gas coming in from Russia, even despite the ban. Even for fuel, they come through India and then back to us here. Likewise, other things. So forget about all those political statements. Those of us who are close to the coal face, we see the maneuvering. The US is still the biggest trader with Russia, even though even before Donald Trump. So but we need to focus on ourselves. Forget about what the others are doing. We need to focus on Nigeria and then spread that to Africa. We have the African Development Bank that has tried to actually create the enabling environment for people to invest. We can't be relying on World Bank and IMF. They are the ones who actually, they are the ones really making us poor. Some of the leaders in Africa, I think in Mali and the rest, some of the minerals that we are talking about, we are supposed to be the richest continent in the world, but we are the poorest. When it comes to meeting their needs, like I said, Nigeria is jumping on it because we have the gas reserve. There's a lot of gas reserves in the North Sea. Why are they not utilizing it? The 7 trains in Nigeria are coming to the UK and the rest of Europe. Why are they relying? We provide the raw material. Let's start by ourselves, be benefiting from this raw material, and let's stop copy and paste and listen to what they say. Let us create the framework that is good for us. Even for me, let's create the framework that is good for Nigeria. Once we are proving that it is working, then we can encourage other African countries. And that is where our influence should be. That would be my advice.
All right.
Thank you very much, Prof, for that wonderful explanation.
Yeah.
I just want to reaffirm or confirm from Uchenna. Does that answer your question perfectly well?
Yes, it does. Thank you very much, Professor.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. Let me hand over to Chairman to take on from here. Thank you very much, Chairman.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Engineer Paul, for anchoring the journey. And Prof, we want to thank you on behalf of the branch, its members, and its ESCO for presenting us with this quite insightful and challenging webinar, talking about what is at the heart of Nigerian economy and how we could improve it.
Is it my network or your network?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we are hearing you perfect.
Yeah.
Yes, okay, that's fine. Yeah, so we want to use this opportunity to thank you. I know you're running for time. If not, I would have asked some of our very senior NSC officials from ESCO to say a word, but I know you're pushed for time.
Yeah, let them send their comments. Though I'm going to translate into my phone now.
Okay.
So I might still be able to
to hear.
listen, to
Okay.
hear what they are saying. Yeah.
No problem for that.
Let me just translate now. Yeah.
Okay, no problem. So thank you so much for Prof for that insightful presentation, and for also always making yourself available whenever we come calling.